אפשר להשם צדיקים יבואו גבול זה.
Shabbat Shalom, dear members of our congregation and our wonderful guest. So it's been about a year and a half since I came to Canada and to this holy congregation. And if you know me a little bit, then you know how much I love Torah, truly love it very, very much. And maybe you have heard me saying that this one is my favorite story and that one is my favorite character. Well, they're all kind of my favorite. But among all of the portions of the Torah, there is one that I love the most, and it's today Parashat Yitro. And of course, I'm not the only one who recognizes the importance of this Torah portion. In Parashat Yitro, we read about the most important moment in Jewish history, the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And the Ten Commandments, with their deep moral and ethical implications, they have contributed significantly to the establishment of universal moral principles, and they transcend geographical and cultural and religious boundaries by advocating for values such as the sanctity of life, the importance of justice and truth, the value of rest and reflection, and the significance of social responsibility. Ten Commandments serve as a foundational ethical guidelines that have profoundly influenced legal systems, moral philosophy, and cultural norms of the world. So while the Ten Commandments introduced in Parashat Yitro have had a profound universal impact, certain ideas in them remain distinctly particular to the Jewish people. And my favorite example of such particularity is the verse in Exodus 19, the verses 5 and 6, which say, "Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and the holy nation." This must be my favorite verse in the entire Parsha, and I come to reflect on it every year at this moment when I read it. The beauty of the Torah is that it always remains relevant to contemporary events. It doesn't matter it was 3,000 years ago or now. And every time I read it, I pause, evaluating my role as a member of the kingdom of priests and holy nation. That is, of course, a very flattering role for Jewish people and for me personally. But the underlying question is quite heavy and complex. Have I lived up to what the role really means? Since the last time I read it, last year, have I met these high expectations? The idea of being a nation of priests suggests that the Jewish people are tasked with a unique role in this world to serve as an example of ethical and spiritual conduct. It doesn't mean inherent superiority or that every action taken by Jewish people are holy. Instead, it highlights that the expectations set upon us are elevated. Just as the priests and temple were expected to adhere to a stringent set of laws and behaviors, so too are Jews encouraged to live by the values and commandments outlined in the Torah, setting an example for moral and spiritual integrity. Living up to the title of a nation of priests means embracing the responsibility to model the principles of justice, compassion, and humility. It's about striving to bring light and goodness into the world through our actions, our relationships, and commitment to the commandments. It challenges us to ask ourselves how we can contribute to the sanctification of this world. And taking on the role of being part of a kingdom of priests and a holy nation is a noble task, but can be extremely demanding. Trying to live up to such high standards of kindness and fairness every day is really a lot to handle. Sometimes it feels like it's just too much, especially when other people don't treat us the way we hope to be treated, despite all our efforts. It's tough when we're trying so hard, and it feels like it's not being recognized or respected. It's like walking a tightrope, trying to stay true to our values while dealing with the challenges that come our way. I'm sure that you noticed that the expectation the world has for Israel are way higher than for other countries. It can feel overwhelming at times, especially when Israel tries so hard but still gets judged more strictly. It's like Israel is held to a different standard, which can feel unfair and adds to pressure. It is a challenging situation because it often seems like the conflicts and issues in other parts of the world don't get as much attention, while everything that happens in Israel is under a microscope. I will give you some examples. For example, according to the UN, over 150,000 people have been killed in Yemen, as well as estimated of more than 227,000 dead as a result of ongoing famine and lack of health care due to the war. That is 377,000 deaths in Yemen between 2015 and 2022, making it the world's most severe humanitarian crisis. And what about the rest of the world? Geneva Academy, as of today, monitors more than 110 armed conflicts. I will name some, but honestly, when I looked through this list, there are a lot of conflicts that I've never heard about. So some of them more kind of prominent are civil war and terrorist insurgency in Afghanistan, terrorist insurgency in Burkina Faso, civil war and drug war in Colombia, Democratic Republic of Congo, it's a terrorist insurgency, civil war in Ethiopia, Iraq, terrorist and political unrest, Mali, civil war and terrorist insurgency, Mexico, drug war, Nigeria, terrorist insurgency, civil war in Somalia, ethnic violence in South Sudan, civil war in Syria, and don't even start me on the war between Russia and Ukraine. All these countries, we don't see anything about them on the news or see very, very little, while everyone is really looking only at Israel. And this intense focus on Israel can feel very disproportionate, as if the global community is more fixated on Israel's actions while overlooking similar or even more severe situations elsewhere. It's tough because it feels like Israel is expected to maintain not just high standards, but almost perfect conduct, despite the complexity and challenges it faces. And this discrepancy in attention and expectations can be really frustrating and even aggravating, especially when we are striving to uphold our values and under such scrutiny. And if you feel that the expectations towards Israel and towards Jewish people are unfair, I hear you. I often feel the same. But what gives me solace is exactly this verse in the Torah portion. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and holy nation. I understand that this is the nature of our agreement with God. We made a deal. Our covenant or brit is like a contract, really, that both parties signed. And in Parashat Yitro, not only we receive the law, which are our commandments, but we don't receive them as something that is bestowed upon us. We do not receive them passively, but we agree to fulfill our obligations. God says, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the people. And in response to that, the response to God, everyone says, and all assembled answered as one, saying, all that God has spoken, we will do. Judaism has this unique conditional aspect where observance of the law, the Torah, is linked to the promise, I will be your God and you will be my people. This covenant is deeply intertwined within Jewish identity. It is inherited through birth. The laws and commandments in the Torah establish the terms of this covenant, which includes detailed rituals and ethical conduct and communal laws. And no other religion in this world is quite like Judaism in this aspect. And I made a thorough research trying actually to find any other religion that would be based on the deal or contract or agreement between a nation and God. There are religions that appear similar in certain respects, such as having structured laws, ethical codes, and prescribed rituals, which are given to people by deity or deities. But these do not constitute a legal agreement in the same sense as in Judaism. I do not know of any other religion that frames its foundational relationship with the divine in terms of a legal agreement. So if you know any other religion like that, you let me know. Yes, at times, the burden of this agreement feels very daunting, but the reward is even greater. The elevated status of Israel, marked by criticism it endures, emphasizes its significant role in the world. It doesn't mean that Israel is perfect or holy unconditionally. It's about striving towards the ideals of justice, compassion, and peace, recognizing that the past is marked by challenges and the need of constant self-reflection and improvement. Israel's destiny is not about claiming a state of perfection, but about the relentless pursuit of these higher standards. It defines Israel's internal character and societal goals and its role on the international stage. The scrutiny coming from other countries, although tough, highlights the expectation that Israel should lead by example, reflecting the values and principles that have guided the Jewish people through history. This expectation isn't just about political or social actions. It is deeply tied to the spiritual and moral heritage that defines the Jewish identity. Remembering that, when I see unparalleled, extremely high expectation of Israel and the Jewish nation, I hold my head up high. I'm quite proud of that. For me, it means that the world recognizes our special status, whether they admit it or not. And I believe that this is the fulfillment of our covenant. Our agreement with God that we made on Mount Sinai is currently in effect and operational. And God has affirmed this day that you are, as promised, God's treasured people who shall observe all the divine commandments, and that God will set you in fame and renown and glory high above all the nations that God has made, and that you shall be, as promised, a holy people to your God. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.